Hello and welcome to episode 3 of In the Studio. Today our guest is the General Manager of DOWASCO, Mr. Bernard Ettinoffe. Like them or not, DOWASCO is one of the most important companies in Dominica as it brings safe, potable water to our homes. Mr. Ettinoffe, welcome to In the Studio.
Well, thank you, Mr. Titre. Thanks for having us. Thank you to all those listening and viewing at this time.
Mr. Ettinoffe, let's get right into the discussion. What is DOWASCO?
Well, DOWASCO, the Dominica Water and Sewage Company Limited, of course, is a wholly owned government company. DOWASCO is owned by the government of Dominica and, of course, by extension, the people of Dominica. And the purpose for which really is to bring water to our homes in Dominica and, of course, sanitation services the best we can.
Yes. And how is the company made up? You're the general manager. I'm sure you're not the only person in the company.
Yes, certainly there is a board of directors, a 7-member board of directors, which reports directly to the minister. Of course, I'm accountable to the board as general manager. There is a management team of 4 other persons assisting me. That is the financial controller. There is the chief engineer. There's the operations and maintenance manager. And there's a manager for customer service and human resource development. So together, the 5 of us form the management team of DOWASCO, and we meet from time to time to plan, quite regularly, I would say, to plan the activities of DOWASCO, seek approval from the board. Of course, the board does refer to the minister and communicate with the minister, the Ministry of Public Works and the Digital Economy, of course, under which we fall at this time. And that basically is how the structure of DOWASCO is. There are 5 departments, really 4 departments. It's engineering, headed by the chief engineer, operations and maintenance, headed by the operations and maintenance manager, and of course we merge 2 departments, and that is customer service and human resources. Hence we have 4 now, of course, headed by the manager for customer service and human resource development. And of course, finance, which includes stores and billing and collections, and so on, headed by the financial controller. We have staff in each of those departments, a total of about 102 permanent staff. And we have a number of what we refer to as part-time staff. And these are the people who takes care of the systems out there in the forest, who look after the intakes, clear the debris, the trees, and monitor what is going on out there in the field. Although they are with us and they have been with us for some time, they do not work 40 hours per week, and hence the reason why I refer to them as part-time, but some are there for 20 years and more, you know.
Yes. So what exactly is going on at DOWASCO at this time? What projects you have in place? How are things going at DOWASCO?
Okay, well, at DOWASCO there's never a dull moment. Let me just put it this way. We always have a number of activities, number of projects ongoing at the same time. Among those projects are those funded by the Basic Needs Trust Fund of the Caribbean Development Bank, the CDB. So at the moment, for example, we are now trying to conclude on the Paybush project funded by the CDB. We have just completed the Mon Prosper project, so we are just waiting to commission that project now. That project costs in excess of $3 million. Of course, the CDB, Basic Needs Trust Fund, did put in about $1.8 million. And DOWASCO and the government of Dominica contributed about $1.3 million to have that project to full completion. It involved the construction of a new intake to serve Mon Prosper, a new pumping station, a new storage tank, new supply and distribution lines. So it was quite an involved project. In Paybush, we are now working to complete that. Well, of course, there's a contractor, contracted by the Basic Needs Trust Fund, but we are working with that contractor to try to complete the Paybush project. In addition to those, there are a number of projects that the government of Dominica itself is undertaking through DOWASCO, of course. Projects in the housing development in Penville, in a number of areas there in Granby, being developed by the Montreal Management Company Limited. And of course, DOWASCO is undertaking the water reticulation works for those systems, those housing development projects. We are also collaborating with the Division of Agriculture So at present, we have just about completing a water project to bring water to the tissue culture plants at 1 mile. And those are going very well. So we work with all government departments. Of course, we ourselves being a government-owned entity to ensure that water is brought to every nook and cranny, put it this way, in Dominica. Water for all.
Yes. There is also a sewage component of the company?
There is a sewage component, and so we have a centralized sewage facility for the city of Roseau and environs that extends to some parts in, close to Castle Comfort there, and to some parts of Focoli and all of Roseau. We do have a small operations in the Canefield area and also in the Jimmet area. Of course, Jimmet is one that is earmarked for major development as well, and so we do have that component. We have plans for a major sewage plans for the city of Portsmouth as well, but of course funding is an issue there, but we hope not very soon, but we hope that funding will be sourced to do that project. Is very much needed for the tourism town of Portsmouth. Yeah.
I have heard in recent times about the Water Sector Strategic Development Plan. What is that?
All right, the Water Sector Strategic Development Plan. You will recall that following the passage of Hurricane Maria, the Prime Minister of Dominica did reach out to the UK government, and some funds were promised for certain development projects in Dominica. Among those was an amount of about 20 million UK pounds for the water sector developments, to build sustainability in the water sector in Dominica. And so the government has mandated that be done in a resilient fashion, a resilient way. And so the Water Sector Strategic Development Plan really seeks to build resilience in the Dominica water sector. Now remember, I say the Dominica water sector, yes, not just DOWASCO. So it looks at the operations at the ministry level, looks at DOWASCO operations, what needs to be done to help beef up DOWASCO as well. So for example, studies that were done, a consultant was contracted, under that fund, and the consultant really is the Fichtner Water and Transportation GmbH of Germany. And so in the studies that they did, they looked at where the weaknesses are, what needs to be strengthened at DOWASCO, at the ministry, wherever that needs to be strengthened, looking at information technology and the use at DOWASCO and how that can be improved, looking at staffing, how that can be improved. And so that is one aspect of it. But the major component of that project really is to implement strategic initiatives in many water systems in Dominica to build that level of resistance or resilience. So they've looked at the Roseau Valley, and they use what is referred to as the infrastructure prioritization framework analysis, a World Bank tool for prioritizing development in water systems and water sector, not just in Dominica, but all over. And so using that framework, doing the analysis, a number of systems were highlighted for intervention. The Roseau Valley is critical among those. Calibishi, another critical system. Cassie Bruce, Grand Fork, Mondrian River, Cyric. The West Coast, looking at rebuilding the Coolibistry intake there and supplying water to Grand Sab and Salisbury, among others. Of course, Water Area 1, and so forth. So a number of new water treatment plants would be developed and implemented. Number of intakes would be impacted. New water storage tanks, for example, for Castle Bruce alone.
Yes.
The storage tank for Castle Bruce is 200,000 gallons, designed and costed and all of that. So that's what we intend to do in Castle Bruce, and we hope very shortly, and throughout Dominica you would see that Water Sector Strategic Development Plan impacting resiliency in water, impacting the way we serve people, and to ensure that water becomes a lot more sustainable, and so on throughout the country.
When you hear about this Water Sector Strategic Development Plan, it's not only about laying pipes and building intakes, from what you have just told us.
No, clearly not, Mr. Titre. It's a plan that looks at what are the weaknesses in the water systems. What do we have to do to make those systems more robust. That's how I should put it. So when you build those tanks, you build those intakes, you run pipes, everything would be built with resilience in mind.
Yes.
So that intakes would be built differently from is done customarily. Pipes would be run probably not on the river beds, but in safer locations, anchored properly. The water treatment plants would be able to treat water even when it rains and the water gets turbid. Turbidity is high, you can reduce that turbidity and you can still supply water. And storage would be increased, and the whole management of the system using technology, such as SCADA systems and so forth, would also be introduced in many of those systems so that we have a reliable water system, a reliable water network throughout Dominica.
You speak of a reliable water network. How difficult is it for DOWASCO to ensure that people have water in their taps at home? You might think it's easy turning on the tap, there's water, there's no water. But tell us about DOWASCO's part in getting water from the source and bringing it to the home of the people. How difficult is that?
Yes, very interesting question, Mr. Titre. A lot of people think that we have a lot of water. We do have an abundance of water in Dominica. We are a water-rich country. There are a number of water-scarce countries around us. So we pride ourselves in being water-rich, and there's no doubt about that. The problem we've had over the years is, climate change has had its toll. It's creating an impact on our water in Dominica. So where we had, for example, relatively large rivers, we don't see those anymore. Okay. The volumes of water flowing in those rivers, if you look with your naked eye, you can see it has been reduced. I can tell you for Springfield River alone, the volume in, say, 10 years ago, 15 years ago was probably over 10 million gallons per day flowing through that river.
Yes. From
which we used to take just about 3 million, less than 4 million per day to serve the people of Rosewood environs. The volumes in that river now average is probably less than 6 million gallons.
Wow.
almost
And you're still taking 3 million or more.
We take more. We take about 4 million. Still 2 million goes to the sea, so not much of a problem there. The concern is that we see all of these heavy rainfalls, brings a lot of mud, and so turbidity rise quickly and so on, and we have to shut the system down from time to time to ensure that mud doesn't get to people's homes. We do have instances where some turbid water, we allow it. We actually allow it.
Yes.
There are times I say to the technicians, the people on the field, if turbidity is about 10, 15 NTUs, allow the water. People need to flush, people need to,
Yes.
People will complain, and I understand that. So what we have tried to do, and I'll get to the question just about what we've tried to do in a case like that, is to build up the treatment capacity of the plants we have at Antrim, Springfield, so that we can serve people better. Now, a question I was asked in Cassibus is, why spend so much at Antrim and Springfield and not spend a little there and some in Cassibus? It doesn't really work that way.
Yes.
We have to seek to perfect one system and then move to another one. So my response was, whatever we do in there, we will eventually do in Cassibus and other parts of Dominica. So we are now just completing a new filtration plant, which will treat water even at 300-400 NTUs and still be able, and that is really dirty water.
NTU, what is that?
Well, that's the measure for turbidity, really. So when you see all the suspended solids in the water and it makes it brown, and that's
what we call dirty water.
Dirty water that is measured in NTUs.
Okay.
So 400 NTUs really almost mud.
All right.
But we have now on that system clarifiers where you can treat that muddy water and send it to the filtration system and then to chlorination and then distribute. You don't want to get too technical, but then distribute water. So from 400 NTUs, we can reduce that turbidity level to almost 2 NTUs, and that's very clean water.
Yes.
Very, very clean water. And so we distribute to our customers. We were able to treat 640 cubic meters per hour up until, even now, but we have just increased the capacity of that plant, so we can now treat closer to 1,000 cubic meters per hour. The average consumption is more like 900, 840 to 900 cubic meters per hour. So
is that for all of Dominica or just
no,
water
no, no,
area one?
water area one. That
Yes.
is, and I'm emphasizing that system because it serves more than 33% of our customers from May Road to Castle Comfort. Your larger hotels, your main hospitals, well, Kimpinks is not much larger hotel than we have in these areas, but your hospitals, many of your schools and so forth. The city of Roseau.
Yes.
And not just environs, but from Meru. So it includes Meru, St. Joseph, Mahu, Layu, Roseau, all the way up to Castle Comfort.
Yes.
So it's a system that must be given great attention, and we're giving all our systems attention. So we have increased the capacity now. So within a month or two, we will be able to treat almost 1,000 cubic meters per hour and release that water to our customers. So we're doing the best we can in that system. Sometimes people's suitability rise and they say, but and I've had several calls like that, even yesterday from someone who lives in New York.
In New York?
In New York, yes. I get calls from overseas all the time, all the time. And sometimes at midnight.
You don't supply water to New York?
No. They have relatives here, and they pay the bill from New York apparently. So you have those concerns, you have those calls, even at midnight sometimes, and say, but nothing is happening and there is no water in such and such a place. And that is BH to be exact. And that it is a fact. There was no rain, and the lady emphasized, there is no rain and we have no water. So the challenges, and you asked me about the challenges, I'm speaking to them now. The challenge or the challenges are not only related to the weather conditions when it's raining and so on. We have two scenarios here. When it's raining, we have the turbidity levels rising, and it prevents us from supplying water as directly as we would like to. When it's dry, as it is now, you have a shortage of water in almost every water system presently. So hence we have to be moving to other areas, finding new areas to relocate intakes and so forth, so that we can have water flowing in the homes of people. Not an easy task at all, providing water in Dominica. The same thing that makes us really, really famous, our trees, our forests, our rainfall, which is plentiful, is also responsible for some of the challenges that we have. Our brilliant sunlight, the streams dry. Because we have a lot of streams. We take water from a lot of streams. We like to say rivers, but sometimes we have to face the reality
Streams.
And call them what they are, streams. We do have some rivers, huh?
Yes.
So we have an abundance of water. There's no doubt about that. We have a few areas.
The problem is getting into the homes.
Major challenge, our terrain, which makes for the abundance of water, and the vegetation that you see also creates problems for us in terms of running pipes. I don't want to be comparing DOWASCO with any other utility, but I will just make this one comment. It's not easy for any of the utilities either, but stretching a line over a valley is simply stretching the line. It's difficult to probably get the poles on this side and on the other side and stretch the line across. But the pipes have to follow the valley. So it goes down the valley, then up the valley, and the side of the valley, and all of those things. Extremely difficult. Pipe materials is becoming more and more increasingly expensive. 1 foot of ductile iron pipe these days is maybe over $1,000.
Wow.
People don't understand those things, so they tell you we have all these rivers and they should not be paying for water. That came up a couple of meetings.
Should not be paying for water.
Yeah, they say water is free in Dominica. Water should be free in Dominica. We don't charge people for water. We charge people a little fee to help to bring the water to them. What we charge, what we collect, cannot bring the water to people in Dominica. Hence, the government of Dominica has had to be subsidizing and providing, all the time intervening so that we can provide subvention so that people can have water in Dominica. So I just want to throw that out there, that what we charge is not the cost of bringing water to them. It's not for the water, it's to bring water to them. You understand? There's a community, for example, where persons would pay $500 for a truck of water that they couldn't drink. The government assisted DOWASCO and we spent in excess of $4 million to bring water to them.
To the community.
Yes, there are times there's a little shortage and people really complain, and I understand that. Water is life, and we pride ourselves in saying that. It's our treasure, it's our life, it's our water. So I understand when people don't have it and they complain. No, don't get me wrong at all. I'm not faulting anybody for complaining. I'm only asking people to be a little patient, because their complaints do not go unheard, clearly, and the government and DOWASCO are working towards bringing relief to everywhere where there are problems. Challenges in Castle Bruce right now, major ones. The streams that we serve Castle Bruce from are pretty dry. The water sector strategic development plan aims at using the irrigation intake to bring a more reliable source of water to the people. There's plans for a major treatment plant, a pumping station that would pump from the flat area to an elevation where we would have a 200,000 gallon tank, a new tank, and that would be massive improvement for the Castle Bruce water system. You couldn't hear a complaint after that, but it's taking time.
Yes,
it's taking time.
Things take time. Yeah.
Yes, and the government has secured the funding from the UK government. So I'm not talking about a pipe dream here. I'm talking about something that is reality about to happen. So we were there, and I'm really asking the people to a little patience. I understand their concern. So what we do in situations like that is we continue to truck water. We have 4 water trucks, 2,000 gallon capacity each, and there are times we have 2 in Castle Bruce alone. There are other areas we have to service as well. But we did make a commitment last Thursday at the meeting there in Castle Bruce that we're going to intensify our trucking and put a schedule in place so that people will know where and when there will be water. And while we work to even a temporary solution before we get to that main solution I'm speaking about, which could happen within a year and a half to 2 years.
How many water systems do we currently have independently operating in Dominica?
Yes.
Because while we have an abundance of water, it's not just one water station, one tank that supplies the whole island.
Right. So we have 43 independent systems. We used to have 44. We've now decommissioned Old Petit Savan. So we have now 43 water systems, each with its own unique challenges, requiring its attention, and hence the reason why we have to have staff all over the place with vehicles. They come from Granby now and then have to run back to Granby. Something else happens, and so forth. It's a challenging situation that the company faces. I believe we're up to the task, and with the support of government and other agencies. I cannot underestimate the support that we get even from DOMLEC, for example, from time to time for pumping stations, from the forestry division, with monitoring the forest, monitoring the water systems, the environmental health, And of course, we have some staff out there. I mean, these guys, they work tirelessly, the women also, around the clock sometimes to ensure that water flows in the homes of people.
And how much has natural disasters been a setback to DOWASCO? I remember just before Maria, the then Minister for Water Resource Management, Honorable Reginald Austri, spoke of almost 100% potable water in Dominica.
Yes.
Maria must have set us back, and also trough systems must have set us back quite a bit.
Yes, and that's correct, Daryl. I would even go back to Tropical Storm Erica when we were about 98.5% coverage in Dominica, throughout Dominica. And many of the systems were even more reliable than they are today. So Tropical Storm Erica did some damage there. We were set back by probably 10% of our water systems. We bounced back nicely, and 2 years later, Hurricane Maria took off most of the systems, most of them, probably 80%, 85%. Following Maria, we have been able to restore all our water systems and even expand some systems. So we have coverage to that's about the same 98.5, 99%, and I'm saving the 1% because every now and then you find a few houses being built somewhere where there's no supply. So we very close to 100% coverage following Hurricane Maria. The problem we have now is that because of the damage caused by Maria, a lot of the systems were restored, if you like, a little bit temporarily because we knew the plans were on the cards to build resilience in the systems. So we didn't, so we tried to restore water because it's important to have water. And now we're looking at building the resilience so so you'd have a more sustainable water supply. We do have interruptions from time to time and pretty regularly in some cases. But when we finish spending the funds that are available now, to build that resilience, we'd expect all the systems impacted would be a lot more resilient. More storage capacity, better treatment facility, improved technology in terms of management of the systems, like SCADA systems, as I mentioned, even more trained staff and better trained staff, and things like that, yes.
Mr. Ettinoffe, you seem to have your work cut out for you at DOWASCO, and I want to wish you and your staff great success in seeking to bring water to the homes of every Dominican. Thank you for joining us in the studio here, and I'm sure at some time in the future we will have you back here in the studios at the Government Information Service to tell us a lot more about what is going on in bringing water to the people of Dominica. Until next time on In the Studio, I'm Daryl V Titre. Bye-bye.